It turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that if you make a joke abroad, the UK just might say, hey, check out these bars. And not the kind of bars where you get a drink, the kind where you go with the orange jumpsuit. This is out of thatparkplace.com. J.K. Rowling slams censor culture and authoritarian rule in the United Kingdom after comedian thrown behind bars. What's this all about? Well, it's about a lot. We're going to talk about it. On September 1st, 2025, at Heathrow Airport, comedian and sitcom creator Graham Linehan? I don't know. Known for Father Ted and the IT Crowd, was taken into custody by 5 armed police officers following his arrival from Arizona. In other words, he came from the US of A. You got to remember, comedian. Everybody remember that. That's going to matter for the rest of the story. The arrest stemmed from 3 posts on X, which apparently were not too bad for X, but were too bad for the UK government. That authorities allege involved incitement of bad stuff against individuals not identifying in the way that biology was taught for centuries before. Folks, you can have your own opinion on that. I'm not giving you a judgment. I'm just trying to dance around what we got to do to be able to say what we got to say. Linehan was detained, questioned, and afterward hospitalized due to high blood pressure. As part of his bail, he's been banned from posting on X. He may have posted the commentary in the United States indicating that the United Kingdom is willing to arrest individuals for online discourse once they arrive upon British territory. Now, J.K. Rowling is not happy about this and says, what the blank has the UK become? This is totalitarianism, utterly deplorable. That's not all. Scott Adams, who is the famous comedian, well, I don't know if he's a comedian, he's a satirist who writes Dilbert, says, Scott Adams, could not take the risk of traveling to the UK. And I agree with Scott Adams. If Scott Adams goes to the UK, they may arrest Scott Adams for what he had to say earlier. Maybe there was some Dogbert comic strip that just went too far. Maybe it was the pointy-haired boss. Just, can't allow him to say the things that are funny and make people, chuckle when they read a newspaper. Likewise, conservative commentators in the United States are deeply concerned over the move in England towards what they see to be totalitarian rule over speech. You can see Robbie Starbuck says the UK has arrested a comedian now for ex-post that the British government found to be criminally offensive. And again, why do we have to bring back the comedian issue? Because, folks, what they're saying is you can't joke about what we don't want you to laugh about, mock, satirize, parodize, whatever. No, you can't do it. Elon Musk has joined in. Nigel Farage. Listen, here's how bad it is, too. We'll play this in a minute. Let's take what we can. We've got plenty to talk about. We're going to come back to this in just a minute because this clip is amazing. In the UK, they are now debating preventing you from talking about topics out in public, even at restaurants. You can't talk about certain things at restaurants. We'll come back to it in a minute. I want to go to the panel, though. Panel, that's plenty to chew on, the idea that comedians can't tell jokes in other countries. And if you do, when you come back, they're waiting for you. And they got weapons. Guys, what do you think of it? What is going on in the UK, and how bad is this for the West?
Sounds like bed bugs, which also sounds like the UK.
Well, that you probably, Steve, should not go to the UK after having said what you just said. Don't do it.
Is that a UK citizen that did this?
Yes.
Like, I'm curious. So what happens to any American who is an American citizen but then goes to work in the UK? How does that work? Because right now there's a lot being filmed over in the UK. So if you're filming over there and you happen to make a tweet or something, a post on X, but you're an American citizen, but you're in the UK when you do it, and maybe it goes. And also, how do you even know what it is that they are okay with or not okay with? Like, what?
There you go, Ron. Ron, I pulled it up on the New York Post. You read my mind. The New York Post says Americans could also face censorship and even arrest in the UK for social media posts. So no, just because you're American does not mean that you're safe to say things in the UK or to say things outside the UK and then travel to the UK. So that none of that's safe. Lauren, you had some thoughts about just how scary this is. And I noticed your background has changed. Lauren, weigh in, please.
Yeah, this is a very bad situation because it's not just the UK either. Right now, the entire European Union is essentially, I would say, undergoing what amounts to an invasion. And right now, you are looking at the fall of Western ideals. They are working to accommodate people who are not their own citizens. In many cases, you have local councils that have been taken over by foreign elements that are now enacting laws. And when your government fails to represent you, it is time to consider what needs to be done to have government that does represent you. And towards that end, there have been calls for King Charles to weigh in and potentially dissolve Parliament to get their politicians under rein. The question is...
That's not going to happen.
I don't think it will either, but if it doesn't, I suspect far worse things are going to happen. There's only so far you can go with your citizens before they will decide that they've had enough. Something needs to be done so that the citizens feel that they're represented. If you don't feel that your government represents you, they become the enemy, and you don't want that, because only bad things follow on after that.
Well, Derek, let's watch this clip that I previewed, and it gets so much worse, folks. This is what it's like in the United Kingdom right now. One of the reasons that we talk about it is because we see people in our chat, in our comments, who say thank you. Because of where I live, I can't say these things anymore. I can't be critical of this anymore. I've lost my ability, or at least I'm afraid to do so. And we'll talk about Hollywood and celebrities in just a minute. But Derek, here's the clip that is just amazing. Here's what we've got.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm delighted to say that we're joined in the studio by Nigel Nelson and Dr. Renee Hunderkamp for the first time on Britain's Newsroom. Well, not the first time, but the first time in a while.
Look down there what it says. Pubs could ban customers from discussing about controversial topics. Keep playing.
Which is lovely. Right, can we talk about this free speech in pubs, Renee? What's going on here?
Renee.
Well, just madness, I think. Just more of this madness employment bill from Angela Rayner, which really needs to be scrapped. Because if we're getting to the point where people are not able to talk about anything they want to talk about in a pub, which is where you talk about anything you want to talk about. It's over. Pubs are over, you know, free speech is over. This whole bill is a disaster for employers and needs to be scrapped.
And because he's quality.
Let's hold right there. Derek, your thought. I mean, this is amazing to me. I don't think Americans realize, and this hasn't gone through to my knowledge. It hasn't gone through. But Derek, the fact that it would even be something that they're having to talk about on the news, the idea, can you imagine, Derek, if they said, hey, Derek, next time you stop by Cracker Barrel, you can't talk about anything controversial, i.e. Cracker Barrel. You'll sit there, you'll eat your scrambled eggs, and you'll shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's deadly serious, in my opinion. I think the UK has crossed the line that they cannot return from with that arrest. And like Lauren had that flag in the background. I've heard that you can't fly certain flags now. You can't fly the Union Jack, or otherwise you may face arrest. Or, you know, they're searching people to see if they have a Union Jack on their persons, because people have been pinning up Union Jacks and the flag of England. It's getting to the point now where, has the country already been conquered? You know, like if you can't speak in public, if you can't make a joke, all right, if you can't go to a bar and have a conversation, if you can't fly your flags, have you already been conquered? Because it seems like they have. It seems like that they can't do anything without facing some sort of arrest. And so at this point in time, it's like, you know what, you guys have already been taken over, you know, by, and I wonder right now, like you're saying, folks in the chat are saying, well, thank you for saying what, you know, you've been saying, Pro, because I can't say it. Well, how long will they allow channels from the Americas to say what they've been saying? How long will it be until some of the UK YouTubers can't say what they want to say? You know, you got Critical Drinker over there. You got Az. You got Mauler. You got a lot of UK YouTubers over there. How long until they're silenced? Like, this is scary stuff. You know, if I was in England or the UK anywhere, I don't know. I'd be very concerned right now about what's next, because it feels like they've crossed the line with this one.
Absolutely. And want to point this out. Sander Hammerslag is saying the comedian was not a UK citizen, but is instead Irish. And we know, of course, the tensions there. So that only adds to it, in my opinion. I mean, that's
because now you got an outsider. Like they said, they can arrest Americans. So if I say something, do I have to worry about, oh, shoot, if I go to London?
What if you said something 12 years ago, Derek?
Waiting for me?
Right.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Somebody going to be waiting for me at Heathrow?
Right.
Say,
Ron, you made a joke that wasn't appreciated, 11 years ago. You show up to the UK and they've got it right there waiting for you. I mean, this is the kind of crazy stuff. This is just nuts. Yeah. Absolutely nuts.
Oh, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. Part of the reason I'm having such a hard time is my understanding of the current UK government is that it is similar right now as ours might be had the November election gone a different way. Is that correct?
To a large extent. I mean, the UK doesn't. There are not. It would have been more difficult to shut down free speech. They gave it a good go here in the United States, but the guarantees do not exist in the same way in England.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because
Steve. Hold on just a second. Steve strongly disagrees. I'm getting the feeling of a bit of.
You guys were nowhere near what was going on. Americans are. How do I say this? They own their country far too much. They are willing to take up arms in the right situations. If
you mess with our peg games at Cracker Barrel, Steve, and we'll lose our minds.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is where like someone made a comment, and I responded to it in the chat there. But like that, basically, when you think of Canada, when you think of how our system is. You have to think of how, back in the day when you'd copy and paste a JPEG, and every time you do that, it would become a little bit more distorted, and like the pixels would kind of like start to show up more and more until you get like the memes that grandmothers are sharing, and they think it's funny. That is essentially our legal system and the way things are going. And so it's a distorted version, but still the same thing of what's going on in the UK. Canada, we're on the verge of this stuff, because there's actual laws being presented right now. People could break into your home, and the police are literally saying, just comply with the people breaking in, because we don't have any castle laws. We have no actual protection. I'm not even kidding.
Right, you don't actually own your own. You don't own your own security in your own home. Real quick, I want to get Ron back in, because Ron had a question, and we interrupted Ron to get Steve's thoughts.
Well,
hang on just one second, Ron. Hang on. I just want to point out something ironic about this. Ricky Gervais is trying to weigh in. At the same time, he's not directly addressing it. And I believe that British celebrities are actually afraid to directly discuss this lest they be arrested. Ricky Gervais says, if you don't believe in free speech for people who you disagree with and even hate for what they stand for, then you don't believe in free speech. But he's not addressing the comedian straight on. I believe that they can only talk in theory. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm specifically asking about this is my understanding is that last year around this time, the person who is now the president of the United States was the person being accused of being on the side that would curb free speech. Which is odd to me, because since he's been in office, he's been more of a champion of free speech, and now in the UK we see the opposite side actually doing that, actually being authoritarian in a way that we don't normally see in free countries, right? It's
time to reassess what's free. It's time to reassess what's free in the West.
Yeah, you don't have freedom without free speech. It's very bizarre to me.
The danger here that the politicians see is the internet, which is why they are trying to stomp on these particular avenues. The thing is that, and this is what we were talking about with Ron here last week, is that if they're trying to apply, for instance, in the gaming situation, their speech codes and laws in the UK to US entities, they're not actually doing it on our soil. It's like our First Amendment protects us against government interference with speech here. It's our government that we are protected from. It's not corporations that are based here or other entities. And so what they're saying is that if you are a multinational corporation, if you're doing business in our ballpark, then you have to comply with our speech codes. And that's how they're attacking these companies. And because it is difficult for any of these big tech companies to have individual age restriction mechanisms in place, or speech analysis for each individual jurisdiction, they have to go with the lowest common denominator. And that means those that have the most restrictive laws on speech are the ones that they're going to apply. And that's the real danger here. They see the internet itself as a danger, and they have recognized that the soft underbelly of that is the corporations that want to be making profits from it.
All right, let's connect that now to Disney. We ready? Derek, I'm going to go to you on this one. Where has Disney gone? At the same time that Lauren is worried, Ron is wrapping his head around this, Steve is expressing that, hey, there's just flat out no freedom here. Derek, Disney pulled all of their Marvel productions out of Georgia, the red state. Moved it out of Georgia. The celebrities were offended. They were offended to have to go to Atlanta, right? Well, it was really more the rest of Georgia. They kind of like Atlanta. But anyway, they were offended to have to go to the red state of Georgia. So they pulled up their tents, they got the stakes out of the ground, and they flew them on over to the United Kingdom. All Marvel and Star Wars productions are now UK only. Derek, what are your thoughts on Disney doubling down on whatever it is the UK is doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just par for the course when it comes to Disney, right? Because they don't want the freedoms that people have any more than the UK does currently. So they're in lockstep with one another. I'm not surprised that and honestly, Hollywood, because I think Warner Brothers has also built up a studio over there as well. So, you know, they're going to be, you know, compliant with whatever's going on. You won't hear anything about this, by the way. You won't hear Disney say a word about the suppression of free speech in the UK. You will not hear a peep about it because they're all on board. They're in lockstep with it. So it doesn't surprise me that, you know, Disney decided to move over there where things are a little bit more restrictive, getting out of the States, you know, also saying we can save a little bit of money as well. Maybe some of that is part of it. But at the same time, it's like we hear about the restrictions that are going on. Is Disney going to say anything? Are they going to comment on this and say, yeah, this is really bad that the United Kingdom, you know, where we do business, is now suppressing free speech, you know, out in the open, blatantly. It's going to be interesting to see if they make any commentary at all. I'm curious about it.
Absolutely. I think we're all watching to see how this is going to play out. And I'll tell you, folks, there's a website you need to be on. And I mean this truly. If you go right now to Hollywood in Toto, hollywoodintoto.com, this is a marvelous article taking on what's happening in England. Christian Toto, the author here, I'm just going to, folks, I just want to preview this and you go read it because it's a masterclass in tackling this topic. Essentially, what Christian is saying in this article, but everybody should go read this. What he's saying is Hollywood is silent. All of the talk about, you know, how worried they were that free speech would be curtailed if the election didn't go their way. All the talk about how they are defending the world against despots and bigots. It turns out that they're off. They flip the switch off the minute they see something that's actually a threat. Hollywood has gone totally silent about the United Kingdom and what's happening, other than J.K. Rowling and Ricky Gervais. Panel, I'll give it to you you know, I mean, Steve, you're living in this to some degree, not quite as bad in Canada. What are your thoughts on the fact that Hollywood is just, the celebrities don't want to say anything at all whatsoever? I guess they're afraid they'll be arrested too. And well, when it comes down to that, the words are few from them. Maybe they agree with it.
Actions have consequences. And I think that by and large, people just don't want to pay the price, right? Like it's the issue right now. And again, I'm going to try and curtail my words kindly.
Steve, are you telling us you're worried about
I mean,
the Canadian Yaxman outside your door?
Yeah.
Tread carefully, Steve. Tread carefully.
I mean, I started a new job today. I gotta be careful, guys.
Dudley Do Right shows up.
Right. The heart behind Canadians, by and large, is that, or at least the historical heart, is they want to be kind. They want to do the right and noble thing. And that becomes kind of the mantra, and you don't really run up against much conflict, that turns into just pacifism. It's so you see people get really angry, and not unjustly so, but it lacks the conviction to actually motivate to move. The question, I think, for Canada, the UK, Australia, wherever, is going to come down to are Canadians and just these countries in general going to be willing to actually put something on the line, to do something that's noble and that's right. At this point, most of the people that have just put on boots and left. And so, but that's obviously not going to save anything. That's just going to let it fester. So I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up to what's going on. I'm just really hoping that it's sooner than later, because in large part, like, these are our families, our kids that are going to end up paying for all this stuff, our lack of action, our lack of willingness to stand on principle. And I mean, you could vote a different way, right? That is something you could do, but people are unwilling to vote for something that's not been tried before. And so they just keep relying on the same things that got them into the problem.
Well, Steve, you know, they got to vote the way that keeps the orange man from taking over Canada, right? I mean, that's what's warped the minds out there. This TDS thing has gone so far that people now be like, we have to give up all our rights so we can stop the orange man. It's like, the orange man is in a different country. Get a hold of yourselves. Otherwise, listen, Steve down there, he won't tell you this, but I will. I will out you, Steve. You're coming out of the closet right now. Folks, Steve is like a warped version of Noah. He has been building a trebuchet, not an ark, to fire himself across the border and into the United States. So, yeah, Steve, I'm sorry to reveal that, and I hope the Mounties aren't on their way to break up your trebuchet, but it was never going to work.
I would get evicted.
It was never going to work.
I think there is some gentle pushback that I would give Steve when saying that we weren't even close. Now,
I wish it wasn't gentle, Lauren.
I understand. One of the things that you're dealing with up there right now is the censorship of the news. Is that you guys aren't allowed to view a lot of news, and that is a really big deal. But the previous administration was perfectly happy to put as much pressure on tech companies as they possibly could. They were threatening to throw people out of their jobs if they didn't make certain medical decisions that the government preferred. They were not shy about debanking people for all kinds of nefarious reasons.
And they'll do it again if they get the chance, Lauren.
Our leadership prior to where we're at now was pretty much in lockstep with what's going on with the other globalists. And had they remained in power, all of these birds of a feather would definitely be flocking together.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this out there, Lauren. There was this event that took place a few years ago. You might remember it. We get in trouble for mentioning it.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about, wait. I know how to do this, Steve. You're talking about the guys with the big rigs, and they choo-chooed on down and tooted on over to the... No, not that one.
I think he's talking about our event.
That one. Oh, yeah, we really can't talk about that one.
The global one? Yeah. So there was a good portion of America that went like, no, America. No one else had that. So you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Hold on.
Americans are willing to stand up for things, and they're willing to actually put their money where their mouth is. No one else. I'm encouraging you right now, Lauren. I'm actually building you up and saying that you're a person of principle, and you're willing to do what's right and stand for something. And you're telling me that you're a feckless coward. I can't believe you, Lauren.
Lord, don't destroy Steve's hopes and dreams. He's looking to America as the beacon on the hill, and you're telling him the lights are dimming. Don't take his hope away.
The sun's going down, big guy.
I'm just saying that, like everywhere else, there's a difference between the people and the government. And it's always a very good thing to have a very skeptical view of government. And that includes even when it's your own side, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what these people want is absolute power. And that, I think, is the real danger here.
All right, let's take a look now. I know everybody's enjoying the conversation, and I am too. I want to add to it, not take away. Let's see what Nigel Farage had to say in front of the GOP judiciary, and I think it might put a chill up the spines of those of you out there who I hope are inclined to have free speech reign supreme, since it is the antiseptic to really bad ideas. Here's what he had to say.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for inviting me here today. And it turns out, with news in the last 48 hours, to have been really rather timely. I'm delighted to reacquaint with the charming Mr. Raskin. That was delightful testimony you gave me earlier on with your speech. But hey, that's fine. You can say what you like. I don't care, because that's what free speech is. And in a sense, this has all been going wrong now for a couple of decades. We've kind of forgotten the Voltairean principles that we'll fight and defend to the death your right to say something that we fundamentally disagree with. That is the absolute foundation, if you think about it, of free speech, of democracy, of living in freedom. It's kind of why we fought 2 world wars.
I'll just pause it there for a minute to say, there is not a single thing, and folks, really think about this for a minute. There is not a single thing that you can say out loud that does not offend someone somewhere. There's nothing you can say. Somebody on this planet will be offended at something you say, no matter how benign. So if the goal is to stop speech that offends, then you will stop all speech. Not a world I want to live in. A little bit more and then we'll get the panel.
At massive, massive cost to defend that very principle for ourselves and for many, many others around the country. And I first became worried about all this with cancel culture. You know, the idea that we can't have this speaker go to a university because some people might be offended by what he or she have to say. It is important to note that there is not a parent in the United Kingdom, and I would guess it's the same for America too, that is not concerned about content their children as minors can find on the internet. Not a single parent that is not concerned about this. But at the moment, we're not finding the right solutions. I do myself begin to think that hardware might be one of the solutions. That laptops, that handsets could be programmed so that many, many apps and many, many services simply aren't available from these devices. But what we've done is to go down the legislative route. And it's extraordinary that, you know, I come from the land of Magna Carta. I come from the land that gave us the mother of parliaments, and it doesn't give me any great joy to be sitting in America and describing the really awful authoritarian situation that we have now sunk into.
He goes on to say and compare his own country, the United Kingdom, to North Korea, which I think is not where they are currently, and I don't think they're going to be there. But even to be going in that direction is a very bad thing indeed. Panel, final thoughts? Anybody who wants weigh in on this? We've got free speech. I'd like to use it, please.
As a matter of free speech, I'd just like to say that I was slightly distracted by the fact that Ron Weasley was sitting a little bit behind him off of his shoulder.
Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Oh, look at that guy over there. Yeah, well, Ron's got a bad hair day.
It's absolutely correct, though. I mean, when he speaks of the Magna Carta, when he speaks of World War II, we fought, people lost, many millions of people have lost their lives fighting for this principle, a principle that says that people that dislike them can speak against them, and they're okay with that because free speech is an excessively important point of natural discourse. It also helps, let's be honest, it helps people reveal who they are and what side they're on, and then the public gets to decide, hey, do I side with that person or do I not side with that person? And that's okay. I understand that speech can also be very, very dangerous, that certain forms of speech can incite actions that can be very dangerous to other people. And I understand that we don't want that. Nobody wants that. But the idea of free speech and free discourse is so essential to a civilization being able to move forward and being able to truly progress and learn how to get along.
Are you trying to be Canadian? Did you just say progress?
I said progress. That's how I pronounce progress.
I hate to ruin such a beautiful speech,
Progress.
but you threw me off because I'm fairly certain that you reside in Florida, sir, and you just said progress.
You know where most Canadians
progress.
go,
Okay,
right?
whatever. But anyway,
Steve says they've all taken their place in the central sunshine state.
Yeah.
Oh boy, Canadians are living in Florida. Is that what you're saying, Steve?
Do you not know where the vast majority of Canadian seniors go?
Every time I walk by a pool in Florida in January, and they're happy as can be. I'm like, wait a minute, you're a Canadian.
Nope, my final
Let me
word.
add one more. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were about to wrap up.
Steve, let's go Steve, then Derek.
Okay.
I was just going to say, my thing is, I'll keep it short and sweet.
You better.
Do the right thing, no matter what.
All right, that's it. That's all I got. Derek, rant away, sir. You the man.
He mentioned the Magna Carta, but we have the U.S. Constitution, and that's the best document on the planet anywhere. And it stood the test of time. All right. It stood the test of time for well over 200 years. And the reason is because the founders understood exactly what it was that they were doing. We have the First Amendment. We have 1A. And then we have 2A to back up 1A. And that's exactly what they understood. If you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have anything. But if you don't have 2A to protect 1A, then you'll lose 1A eventually, which is what's happening in all of these Western countries all over the world. They've given up those rights to bear arms, and now they're losing their freedom of speech. And so, God bless the fathers. They knew exactly what it was that they were doing.
That's right. And Australia is a great example of what happens when the people no longer have the power to defend themselves, not necessarily from the burglars, not from the dingoes, but from the tyrants, who apparently are just clustered together up in jolly old England.